Benjamin Libet did not set out to prove that free will was an illusion. He set out to measure it. He placed electrodes on people's scalps, asked them to flex their wrist whenever they felt like it, and report the position of a clock hand. They reported the clock hand's position at the moment they first felt the conscious urge to move. What he found ended a philosophical argument that had been running for 2,000 years. The brain's electrical activity, a wave he called the readiness potential, began rising 550 milliseconds before conscious awareness. The decision had been made. The person then became aware of the decision. And then the person moved. Consciousness was not the author of the action. It was the audience. Right now, you believe you are reading this deliberately. That your attention is a choice you are making, moment by moment. That the thought you are about to have will originating some essential part of you that is in control. The Libet findings suggest something different. By the time you are aware of any thought, decision, or intention, the neural machinery has already done its work. The you that you think is in charge is, at best, a commentator running half a second behind the action. In this video I am going to decode the Libet experiments in full, what was actually measured, what it actually showed, and what has been replicated since. I'm going to show you John Dylan Haynes' 2008 finding that extended the gap from 550 milliseconds to up to 10 seconds. I'm going to run through the strongest philosophical counter-arguments, compatibilism, the veto hypothesis, and show you where they fail. And I'm going to give you Robert Sapolsky's 2023 synthesis, which is the most comprehensive current argument that free will does not exist. The implications for how you understand yourself, other people, moral responsibility, and the criminal justice system are total. Benjamin Libet was not a philosopher making a theoretical argument. He was a neurophysiologist at UCSF measuring electrical signals. His 1983 findings have been replicated, challenged, refined, and confirmed in variations across laboratories for 4 decades. John Dylan Haynes' lab at the Bernstein Center for Computational Neuroscience, Berlin, extended the finding using fMRI. Robert Sapolsky is a Stanford neuroendocrinologist whose work spans 40 years of research on how biology, genetics, and environment determine behavior. This is not speculation. This is the data. Let's decode it. The experimental design was elegant and devastating. Participants sat in front of a clock face with a rapidly rotating dot. They were instructed to flex their right wrist at any moment they chose. They noted the clock doe's position at the precise moment they first became aware of the intention to move. Simultaneously, electrodes on their scalp measured the readiness potential, a gradual buildup of negative electrical potential in the motor cortex. This had been known about since 1964. Libet's innovation was to correlate it with the subjective report of conscious intention. The finding, the readiness potential began rising approximately 550 milliseconds before the movement occurred. The conscious awareness of the intention to move appeared approximately 200 milliseconds before the movement, which means the brain had already committed to the movement approximately 350 milliseconds before the person became aware of any intention to make it. Libet himself was troubled by this. He proposed a compromise. Perhaps free will exists not in the initiation of the decision, but in the veto. The ability to consciously cancel a movement that the brain had already committed to. The brain proposes, consciousness disposes. This is the most sophisticated argument for preserved free will in a post-Libet world. We will examine why it ultimately fails. In 2008, John Dylan Haynes and colleagues published a study in Nature Neuroscience that extended Libet's finding by an order of magnitude. Using fMRI rather than EEG, they could observe not just motor cortex activity but patterns of activity in prefrontal and parietal cortex. These are the regions associated with decision-making and intention. They asked participants to press one of two buttons at any point they chose, and to report which button they intended to press. What the fMRI data revealed was that activity patterns in the frontopolar cortex predicted which button the person would press. This prediction occurred up to 10 seconds before they were consciously aware of the intention. 10 seconds, not 350 milliseconds, 10 seconds. The person's subjective experience was that they made a spontaneous, free choice in the moment. The neural record showed a deterministic buildup that had been underway for 10 seconds before that experience. The implications are not subtle. If your choices can be predicted from your brain activity 10 seconds before you experience making them, the most natural explanation is that the experience of choosing is a post-hoc narrative constructed by a brain that had already decided. The experience of agency is real. The agency itself is questionable. The most sophisticated philosophical response to the Libet Haynes findings is compatibilism, the position advanced by Daniel Dennett and others, that free will and determinism are not actually in conflict, because free will properly understood is not about being the uncaused cause of your actions. It is about acting from your own desires, values, and reasons rather than from external coercion. On this view, the fact that your brain decides before your conscious mind becomes aware is irrelevant because your brain is you. The decision that emerged from your neural architecture emerged from the values, memories, experiences, and dispositions that constitute who you are. That is all free will ever meant. This is a coherent position. And it is, I will argue, ultimately a definitional move rather than a philosophical resolution. Sam Harris, in his 2012 treatment of this question, identified the problem precisely. Compatibilist free will may be worth having, but it is not the free will anyone cares about. When we hold people morally responsible for their actions, when we praise, blame, punish, and reward, we are operating on an intuition that people could have done otherwise. In a deep metaphysical sense, not just that they would have done otherwise under different conditions, but that in this exact set of conditions, with this exact brain, this exact history, this exact moment, they faced a real choice that could have gone either way. The neuroscience says that intuition is false. The conditions produced the brain. The brain produced the decision. The decision produced the action. At no point in that chain was there an uncaused chooser. Libet's veto hypothesis fails on the same grounds. If the veto is itself a neural event, and it is, then the veto is also determined by prior neural states. You cannot escape the chain by finding a different link in it. In 2023, Robert Sapolsky, Stanford's neuroendocrinologist, published what may be the most comprehensive argument against free will in scientific literature. At the moment of any action, there is nothing left over that could constitute a free agent. Every variable that produced the person who performed the action was itself produced by prior variables. The chain has no beginning that the person chose. Sapolsky is careful to separate two questions: whether free will exists and whether holding people responsible is useful. He argues clearly that free will does not exist in any meaningful sense, and that a justice system not rooted in punishment as retribution, but in social protection, rehabilitation, and harm reduction is both more accurate to the underlying neuroscience and more effective in its outcomes. This is not a comfortable position. It dismantles the entire architecture of moral blame, but it replaces that architecture with something arguably more powerful: the recognition that behavior is the output of systems, and that you change behavior by changing systems, not by punishing individuals while leaving the systems intact. Free will as we intuitively understand it The sense that right now, at this moment, you could choose differently than your brain is about to choose, is not supported by the evidence. The experience of making choices is real. The metaphysical status of those choices as genuinely open possibilities is not. What this gives you is not despair. It gives you a different relationship to yourself and to other people. If behavior is the output of systems, then the question is not who is to blame, but what is the system? And that is a more tractable question. It is a question that produces answers. Answers that change things. That is the Cipherr standard. Not comfort. Architecture.